whatever the need may be. Today, Intelsat is the partner of visionaries who accept no limits. Industry leaders, government forces, and entire communities turn to Intelsat to help them achieve their next firsts. Many of the innovative firsts have been delivered by Galaxy satellites. This summer marks the 40th anniversary of the start of the Galaxy constellation. Intelsat and its legacy companies have delivered 4 decades of reliable satellite service around the globe, thanks to the Galaxy satellites. With our latest launch, Galaxy 37 Horizons 4, Intelsat continues that legacy of excellence and advances the comprehensive Galaxy Fleet refresh plan.
This satellite launch, Galaxy 37 Horizon 4 with SpaceX Falcon9 is actually going to be the 8th satellite that we launched over the last 10 months. And this is unprecedented for the industry. 8 geostationary satellite launch within 10 months. Galaxy 37 Horizons 4 is replacing Galaxy 13 Horizon 1. So it has 2 missions. The primary mission is the C-band mission for our media customer over North America, including Alaska. The secondary mission is a Ku-band mission that's covering our mobility and network customer, although North America, but in addition, the Pacific Ocean. That Ku-band mission is actually a joint venture between Intelsat and JSAT.
The H4 Ku-band payload will provide continuity for our mobility, network, and U.S. government customers and will be owned jointly by Intelsat and JSAT International, the U.S.-owned subsidiary of SkyPerfect JSAT Corp.
The relationship between Intelsat and JSAT is a very, very important. We, JSAT, mainly our customer is very domestic. However, emphasizing such a relationship with Intelsat, we can strengthen the name value in overseas.
JSAT has been a very trusted partner of Intelsat over the years, starting with Horizon 1, Horizon 2, Horizon 3, and now Horizon 4 joint venture. So we're extremely pleased to be working with JSAT over the years.
The Falcon 9 vehicle that you see on the pad is a 2-stage rocket designed and manufactured by SpaceX. Standing at 229 feet tall, the Falcon 9 is about 40 feet taller than the Leaning Tower of Pisa in Italy. And for all you Star Wars fans out there, Falcon 9 was named after the Millennium Falcon from Star Wars. The number 9 indicates the number of Merlin 1D engines on the first stage, which makes up the bottom 2/3 of the vehicle. Speaking of the first stage, its objective is to accelerate the vehicle through the Earth's atmosphere to space and then separate from the rest of the rocket. The first stage, also referred to as the booster, is flying for the 6th time today. It previously supported Crew 5, GPS-3 Space Vehicle 6, Inmarsat I-6F2, CRS-28, and a past Starlink mission. And we will attempt to recover this booster again on our drone ship. Just read the instructions, which you see there on your screen now. And if successful, this will mark our 213th landing of an orbital-class rocket, and that includes both Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy vehicles. Moving up above the first stage is the second stage, which has a single Merlin vacuum or MVAC engine that ignites after the 2 stages separate from one another. The second stage is what will carry the Galaxy 37 Horizons 4 satellite into orbit. And speaking of the payload, it's currently safely enclosed inside of that 17-foot diameter payload fairing, which is that large barrel structure with the pointed nose at the very top of the rocket. Made of a carbon composite material, the fairing protects the payload from aerothermal heating and contamination on its trip to space before being jettisoned about 3 minutes into flight. And much like the first stage, the fairing halves on today's flight are flight proven. One half is flying for the 8th time today, and the other half is flying for its 10th time. After separation, the fairing halves will return to Earth to be recovered by our recovery vessel, Bob. And lastly, that large truss structure you see next to the Falcon 9 is the Transporter Erector, or the TE. We use it to roll the rocket out to the pad and raise it to its vertical launch position. The TE also routes the vehicle's fluids, power, and telemetry umbilicals from the ground systems to the rocket and the satellites until F9 goes on internal power and clears the pad. And under 5 minutes prior to liftoff, the TE will retract away from the rocket in preparation for liftoff. And from there, we'll be well on our way to delivering the Galaxy 37 Horizons 4 to GTO, or Geostationary Transfer Orbit. Now, getting to orbit is not as simple as it sounds. In order to get the rocket and payload into any orbit, the rocket has to not only go up really fast, but it also has to go sideways. As we ascend, we tilt the engines, and that turns the rocket horizontally. So to help demonstrate this concept, imagine firing a cannon from a really high mountain. The cannonball will arc, and then good old gravity will pull it down to Earth.
그 발사도
As you
제가
increase the power,
생중계를 할
the cannonball will arc and
예정이니까
land farther and
지켜봐
farther
주시면
away.
감사하겠습니다.
Eventually, if you could continue to increase the power,
네,
the
지금
cannonball will end up
발사돼가지고
in free
정지궤도
fall
지금 들어가는
around the
과정
Earth.
지금
Basically,
보여주고
gravity is
있죠.
pulling down on the cannonball, but it's going so fast that it never hits the ground. And this arc that
저거
constantly
물리시간에
misses the
나오는
Earth
건데
is called an orbit.
발사돼가지고 어떻게
Falcon 9
원궤도 도냐 뭐
effectively
그런 거
does the same
뜨잖아요.
thing as the cannonball in this example. It provides enough power and horizontal velocity to the spacecraft on board the second stage that the spacecraft is
네,
placed in
어쨌든 지금 5분
orbit around the
남았고요.
Earth. And you'll be able to see this today by watching the orientation of Falcon 9 after liftoff. The rocket will go straight up until about T plus 10 seconds, at which point we begin that shift in orientation by gimbaling the engine so Falcon 9 can go horizontally really fast. So be sure to take a look at that after liftoff. Now at just about 5 minutes and 20 seconds until launch, we should see those clamp arms beneath the fairing.
페어딩도 해소가 됩니다. 페어딩은 밥 우주선의 그 드론십에 해소가 되고요.
Once we see those clamp arms open around the second stage,
부스터는
we'll see the TE begin to pull away from the rocket just
저스터
slightly.
리스터 인스트럭션
Then
여기서
at
이제
T0, ground hydraulic systems
거기에
will pull the TE
회수가
even
됩니다.
further away from the Falcon 9 as it lifts off. Just sort of call out that we are pressing the tanks ahead
중국도
of
이
that
발사를
strong
로켓
back
발사가
retract.
성공해가지고 아주 재밌습니다. 중국은 그 32번째 발사 그리고 창정 로켓
This clamp arm
481번째
should start to
발사
open in
기록을
just
세우고
around 30
있거든요.
seconds or so.
그래서 오늘부터 해가지고 이제 로켓 발사 그 클립 영상을 계속적으로 정리해가지고 정리할 예정이에요.
And there's that call out for those arms starting to open up. You should be able to see them just below the fairing halves there on the second stage.
그리고 이제 사실 발사를 준비하고 있는 로켓도
As
굉장히
you can see there,
많아요.
the arms are now opening up.
러시아의 지금 달 탐사선 누나 25도 지금 발사 준비를 한창이고 일본에서도 지금
Again, once those
소형
arms open up, the
달
strong back will
착륙선
retract
그리고
away from the rocket.
크리즘이라고 하는 블랙홀 그 만원경 이게 발사 준비를 계속 준비하고
At this point in the
있다는
countdown,
거
both the first and the second
참고하시기
stages are nearly
바랍니다.
fully loaded with 1 million pounds of kerosene fuel and liquid oxygen. Falcon 9 uses two propellants, a refined form of kerosene called RP1, or Rocket Propellant 1, as a fuel, and LOX, or liquid oxygen, as an oxidizer. An oxidizer is a type of chemical that a fuel requires in order to burn. The liquid oxygen is chilled below its boiling point so that it has a much greater amount of mass per volume, and that's basically so we can load more of it into the
패커네비하고
rocket.
드래곤 우주선이
In addition to
그
these two
시무주
propellants, we also use the
시무주
chemical TTEB,
뭐야, 이거?
or triethyl aluminum and triethyl borane, as an ignition source. The combustion of
150
RP1
발전.
and LOX is what makes the rocket
와,
go,
새로운
and it's the
그
TTEB that sets the
우주
match
계획을 또
to the
썼네요,
propellant mix.
나사에서.
At T-minus 60 seconds, Falcon 9 will be in startup, and this means that the rocket's autonomous internal flight computers have taken over the launch.
Stage 1 lock load complete.
Have taken over the launch countdown. And just inside of T-minus 2
네,
seconds, we
1분
will light
남았습니다.
those
이제
9
스타트
Merlin 1B
들어가겠네요,
engines
이제요.
for liftoff. So far, the Galaxy 37 Horizons 4 payload continues to be healthy, and the Falcon 9 team is tracking no issues on the rocket. Currently, weather is green, and the range is ready to support a T0 of 1 a.m. Eastern Time. Teams are currently reporting an 80% probability of launch today based on weather.
네, 지금 상태는 굉장히 양호한
Coming
걸로
up next,
보입니다.
in around 30 seconds, we should hear a call out for second stage LOX load completion, and that will end the propellant loading process.
이거 오늘 발사되는 것은 40번 패드에서 발사합니다. 케이프 커네버더 서프터빌에서 발사합니다.
Those white
Stage 2 lock load complete.
just heard that call out for stage 2 LOX load completion. So with that, the Falcon 9 is now fully loaded with propellant. Those white clouds you see venting from the TE LOX line is a completely normal part of the process.
Ground gas closeouts. Falcon 9 is in startup.
As we just heard, Falcon 9 is in startup, which means the vehicle's internal flight computers have now taken over control of the launch countdown.
야, 스타트가 들어가고 이제
SpaceX launch director.
발사
go
앞두고
for
이제
launch.
1분 안 남았죠?
And there we go, folks, with the final go for launch from our launch director. All systems are go for launch of Falcon 9 with the Galaxy 37 Horizons 4 satellite.
30 seconds.
야, 30초. 야, 10초 이제 언저리 남았습니다.
T-minus 10, 9,
9.
8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2,
발사. 올라갑니다. 네. 와, 갤럭시 37 발사됩니다. 올라가요.
T plus 30 seconds into flight, Falcon 9 has successfully lifted off from Pad 40 at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. During ascent, we'll tilt the engines in a technical term called gimbaling, and that will turn the rocket horizontally in what we call a gravity turn.
nominal power and telemetry.
Now we're still going up, but we're also heading horizontally away from the launch pad. And the rocket typically needs to go about 17,500 miles per hour horizontally in order to avoid being pulled back down to Earth and reach orbit.
Falcon 9 is supersonic.
네, 이제 맥스큐 최대 송합점 들어갑니다.
Now coming up, we should throttle down the Merlin 1D engines in preparation for max Q, or maximum aerodynamic pressure.
Max Q.
And there's that call out. We did just pass through the point of max Q.
맥스큐
And now we
들어가죠.
have 3 events coming up in quick succession, starting with MECO, Stage SEP, and SES-1. Main engine cutoff, or MECO, is the point during the flight where we shut down those 9 Merlin 1D engines on the first stage. Shortly after that, stages 1 and 2 will separate from each other, and that's so that the second stage isn't carrying unnecessary mass to orbit, and of course, the first stage booster begins its trip back down to Earth. Second engine start 1, or SES-1, will be when we ignite the Merlin vacuum engine on board the second stage.
Nominal trajectory.
So we're coming up on those events in around 40 seconds, so let's keep a close eye on our screen for those events. Getting some great views of the ascent of the first stage here.
오늘 이번 부스터
You can see the plume of
이번에
the rocket is
부스터는요.
expanding as
그
the
여섯
surrounding
번째
atmospheric
비행하는
pressure decreases.
B1077입니다. 이번 여섯 번째 비행입니다. 자, 이제 미코 메인 엔진 컷오프 들어가게요.
MECO.
미코 들어가죠.
Stage separation confirmed.
네, 부스터 1단 부스터 분리 완료.
And back ignition.
There we go, folks.
자,
You just
그리고,
heard and saw those 3 events that
예,
happened back to back. Those were
세컨 엔진
MECO, Stage
스타트업도
SEP, and
동시에
SES-1.
들어갔습니다. 그래서 이제 텔레멘트리
Coming
보이죠?
up next in around 30 seconds will be fairing separation.
아니 뭐 자동적으로 잘 들어가네요.
As a reminder, on the left
그래서
side of your
오늘
screen, you are
발사가
seeing a live
제,
view of the first stage.
스페이스X의
On the right side of your screen, you're seeing a
53번째
live view
발사,
of the
올해
MVAC
53번째
engine attached to
발사고요.
the second stage.
전문 부분만 아직 그 스페이스X가
Keep a close
연속으로
eye on the
그
telemetry in the bottom left
통산
and right corners of your
251번째
screen.
발사라고 하더라고요. 네, 엄청나게
You can
발사를
see
많이
MVAC
했어요.
is continuing to accelerate the payload faster and faster. And stage 1 is actually slowing down as it is no longer under power of rocket engines.
Fairing separation confirmed.
네,
And there we go. There
페어링
go those
분리
two fairing
완료.
halves. We will be attempting to retrieve
여기
both of those
지금
again today once they fall back to Earth.
인텔셋
And we'll be
갤럭시
using our
37
recovery vessel
보이시죠?
Bob for that.
페어링 분리까지
Coming up
완벽하게
next are the
됐습니다.
2 burns on the first stage, and that is to prepare us for landing on our drone ship. Just read the instructions.
네, 이제 1단 부스터는 저스터 리더 인스트럭션에 이제
Now we're just
상륙할
about T
예정입니다.
plus 4 minutes
우리말로
into
하면은
today's
한국말로
mission.
하면은
We are currently in the
그
first
설명
of 2 planned
그냥
MVAC
설명서만
burns
읽으세요.
prior
그렇게
to
나오더라고요.
satellite deployment. At around T plus 6 minutes, you should see on your screen the first
Both
stages.
vehicles remain on a nominal trajectory.
You should see the first stage's entry burn at about T plus 6 minutes. Now for the entry burn, we do relight 3 of the M1D engines, and that's starting with the center E9 engine, followed shortly after by the E1 and E5 engines. And that slows the vehicle down as it passes back into the Earth's atmosphere. Now we need to slow down the vehicle to reduce re-entry forces, and that helps us recover and reuse the first stage. So be sure to follow along with the telemetry in the bottom left and right corners of your screen. During the entry burn, Falcon 9 is decelerating by firing its Merlin engines, but we're still moving very rapidly. So this causes the vehicle to fly through Merlin's exhaust gases, also sometimes called the rocket's plume, and this deposits a layer of soot on the vehicle's surface. And that soot comes from the carbon-based fuel that Falcon 9 uses. So again, coming up on the entry burn in about a minute and 10 seconds from now. Currently getting a great view of the MVAC engine continuing its burn. We are now traveling over 12,000 kilometers per hour as we head to orbit.
자, 이제 1단 엔진 엔트리 이제 들어가겠죠?
You can see that beautiful orange glow of the MVAC nozzle extension. That's one of the methods that the nozzle uses to cool itself during burn. Again, on the left side of your screen is a view of the first stage. Should be starting up for the entry burn in just around 15 seconds.
8월 8일이면 언제죠? 8월 8일이면은 화요일인데.
Stage 1 entry burn startup.
네, 엔트리 번
Stage 1
자,
FTS is safe.
자, 지금 내려오고 있죠.
And there's that call out. We did just start up
직전이죠.
engines 1, 5, and 9 for the entry burn.
네, 엔트리 번 한 다음에
This burn is around 20 seconds in total. You can see in the telemetry in the bottom left side of your screen that the vehicle is slowing down rapidly now.
자, 내려오죠.
Stage 1 entry burn shutdown.
And there we go. Just had confirmation of stage 1 entry burn shutdown.
네,
As a reminder, the first stage that's supporting today's mission will perform the entry burn for the 6th time. It has previously supported Crew 5, GPS-3 Space Vehicle 6, Inmarsat 6F2, CRS-28, and a past Starlink mission. Falcon 9 is, of course, the world's first orbital-class reusable rocket, and this is important because reusability allows SpaceX to refly the most expensive parts of the rocket, and that in turn drives down the cost of space access. Next milestone coming up is the shutdown of the MVAC engine on the second stage, and that'll be followed quickly by our landing burn on the first stage. So we do have about 30 more
Terminal
seconds.
guidance.
30 more seconds in the first burn of MVAC. As you can see now, we are traveling over 23,000 kilometers per hour.
Stage 1 transonic. Stage 2 FTS is safe. Stage 1 landing burn.
랜딩번 들어갑니다. 다시 나오죠? 야, 드디어 이제 1.3, 1.1.
There's Seco 1. We're just waiting confirmation of a good orbit and a stage 1 landing.
Nominal orbit insertion.
예, 이제
There we go.
그리드
Great news there.
내려놓고
Confirmation of a good orbit.
내려옵니다.
Stage 1 landing
내려오나요?
light deploy.
네, 완벽하게 착륙에 성공했습니다. 네,
Stage 1 landing
완벽하죠?
confirmed.
네, 볼 거 다 봤습니다.
There you have
이제.
it, folks.
Expected loss to zero. Cape.
That landing marks SpaceX's 213th recovery of an orbital-class rocket, and that includes first-stage landings for Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy missions. Now, the mission isn't over just yet. The second stage is now embarking on its first coast phase. After this coast phase, we will light that MVAC engine for a second time around the T plus 26-minute mark. So we'll see you back here in about 17 minutes.
자, 이제 2단 엔진은 정지됐고요. 18분간 연소한 다음에 두 번째 연소를 위해서 초동기식 전통 궤도까지 상승을 완료할 예정이다. 지금 되어 있습니다. 계속적으로 올라갑니다. 그래서 일단 제가 이제 켜놓을 테니까요. 아마 이 2단 엔진이 점화 끝나고 이 위성 갤럭시 37이 이제 디플로이 할 때까지 아마 계속적으로 이제 그 상승 기동을 할 거예요. 사실 제가 할 얘기도 별로 없어요. 알겠습니다. 그래서 일단 켜놓을 테니까요. 네, 그냥 보시기 바랍니다.
Expected losses signal, Bermuda. Acquisition of signal, goodbye.
Welcome back to the SpaceX webcast. Tonight's Falcon 9 mission is carrying the Galaxy 37 Horizons 4 satellite to space. We've had a nominal mission so far. Falcon 9 launched on time at 1 o'clock a.m. Eastern Time from Space Launch Complex 40. We did have a successful main engine cutoff, stage separation, first burn of the MVAC engine, and we did successfully land on our drone ship. Just read the instructions. The second burn of the MVAC engine is starting in around 20 seconds from now. This burn should last just about a minute.
MVAC ignition.
And as you just heard and can see on your screen, we did just start up that MVAC engine. This is the second of 2 planned burns for the MVAC engine today. And again, this burn should last just about a minute. Now, today's mission is what we call a GTO, or Geostationary Transfer Orbit. The current burn is putting the high end of the orbit at an altitude of about 35,000 kilometers or 22,000 miles. And the spacecraft will do the rest of the work to put the other side of the orbit at the same altitude. And at that point, it'll be in a geostationary orbit.
MVAC shutdown.
Nominal payload insertion orbit.
Great news there. Just had confirmation of a good orbit on the
자, 이제
second burn.
디플로이까지 하면요.
The payload
이거
is still
끝나고요.
attached to the Falcon
지금
9
세컨
second
엔진
stage,
컷오프까지
and
두
deployment
번째
is scheduled
컷오프까지
in
지금
just
진행이
about 4
됐습니다.
minutes from now. So while we wait for that, let's sit back and enjoy the views.
네, 또 기다리십시오.
Mission signal, hard to start.
If you're just joining us, welcome to the webcast for the Intelsat Galaxy 37 mission. We've had a nominal mission so far with an on-time liftoff at 1 a.m. Eastern Time, followed by successful ascent, stage separation, and 2 second stage engine burns. Now we're coming up on the final mission milestone of the day, and that is payload deployment from our second stage. As a reminder, our customer for today's mission is Intelsat, and they're launching their Galaxy 37 Horizons 4 payload. Manufactured by Maxair, today's launch will further advance Intelsat's comprehensive Galaxy fleet refresh plan. And expected to enter service by October of 2023, G37H4 is a single satellite that will provide North American capacity for television media and telecommunication network customers and continuity for mobility, network, and US government customers. And it will be jointly owned by Intelsat and JSAT International, which is the US-owned subsidiary of SkyPerfect JSAT Corporation. Now we're just coming up on payload deploy in around 20 seconds.
Galaxy 37 spacecraft separation confirmed.
There we go, folks. With that confirmation of successful payload deployment, that will end our coverage of the Intelsat Galaxy 37 mission. All of us here at SpaceX want to give a big thank you to our customer Intelsat for entrusting us with today's mission. We also want to give a big shout out to the Range and Federal Aviation Administration for supporting today's launch. Today's flight concludes SpaceX's 251st overall mission to date and our 52nd launch.